The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Welcome to Moments of Strength. I'm your host, Mary Kaufman. In this show, we celebrate the incredible resilience of mothers showing up through life's challenges, growing through every triumph, and carving out space for their own passions and identity. We're here to uplift and reassure every mom that you are not alone and that asking for help is a powerful strength. Each episode brings a story of motherhood's beautiful chaos. I'm happy you can join us for today's inspiring journey. And today's guest is Denise. Denise, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you could be here. And actually, we were just talking a little bit before the show, but we didn't talk about how we met or even how long, we've kind of known each other. And really, we've been kind of adjacent in the community.
Yes.
So we are in the same spaces sometimes, but
Yes.
I feel like I've known you to a certain degree over the years, but it's just so nice to be here and be able to
I feel
to
the
talk
same
to
way.
you.
If I had a dollar for every time that someone said, "Well, you know Mary Kaufman, right?" Like, I mean, it's like
It feels like
yes,
it. Yeah.
absolutely.
So I'm glad we can be here to sort
Yeah,
of
I am too.
talk for real in person.
Mhm.
So that's good. So the aim of the show really is to provide just support and resource for moms, anybody who's watching, really moms and parents, through stories of life experience. And, it's moments of strength. So those things we experienced in our lives that, might have been challenging that we found a way through. I think this show really provides just a lens into somebody else's life who also had trials, and made it through that. And that can be inspiring, uplifting, encouraging for people who might find themselves just, alone or going through that. So we would love to know more about your story. And so if you just want to start, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you grew up, what your childhood was like.
I was born in Black River Falls, northern Wisconsin, and we were there. I was born in 1970. We moved to Madison in 1972, and really to the east side of Madison, and that was where I called home. Traveled back and forth. My dad is, we were Ho-Chunk Indian, and my mom is Norwegian, and so we would go back up to Black River quite a bit, see both sides of my family there, but really grew up in really loving home. It was kind of the epicenter in our neighborhood for people my age, my parents' age, always filled with laughter. And my mom was a clinical social worker, so there was always some hitchhiker or someone she's picked up along the way that was at our house, or that we were going to help or furnish someone's apartment. That was just kind of what we always did. And went to La Follette High School, went to Madison, where I met my husband. And kind of that's where, growing up, that was kind of right around this area.
Yeah. So did you have siblings at all?
I did. I have one brother. He's 5 years older, and he is retired police officer in this area. And he and his wife have two beautiful kids, and so we all kind of grew up together around here.
Yeah. And when you were growing up and going through school, were you, somebody who did extracurricular activities? Did you play sports?
Yes, I played sports from the time I was little, and my dad was, and brother for that matter, were really passionate about golf. So I started golfing when I was 5 years old.
Oh my gosh.
It was one way I could get out of doing chores if I went golfing with them. And it was just time that I could spend with my dad. And then in the summer, my dad would drop my brother and I off, mine who's 5 years older than me, at Yahara Golf Course, and we would golf all day. And then he'd pick us up on the way back. I think it was cheap daycare for them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I played sports my whole life, and it was just a really, I think it was, I met, still to this day, some of my very best friends from childhood are from softball and basketball, and that was kind of, I was always very active.
Yeah, that's good. And, I was born close to when you were born, and so much of that time was spent outside. Like when you talk about the neighborhood being sort of the epicenter, it's like everyone was outside all
Absolutely.
the time.
When the lights came on is when we had to come home.
Yeah, and it was great. That's funny. My daughter had some of her friends over, and she's in middle school, and they were just sort of pounding around the house, just whatever. And it was so beautiful outside. And I was like, you guys, like, it's so nice out. Just go out. And they were gone for 2 hours. They walked up to the park.
Yes.
And that age, you feel a little old for a park or something like that. But there's a zip line. They were entertained. And they were gone for a while, and they really enjoyed it. But I think, we've come to a different place where you have to remind kids to go outside.
I mean, there's now charades in a box in a store. We didn't have that. Like, I had a big oak tree in my backyard, and that was a spaceship. That was a schoolhouse. We were very, it was imaginative play. Because, my parents, I never realized how perhaps meager it was growing up for me, because I thought we were rich. I didn't realize until I was an adult how, the sacrifices are just what my parents did to provide really incredible opportunities for my brother and I.
Well, you were rich, just wasn't money. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I mean, you weren't
exactly.
wrong. And I think too, kids really think that a lot of times if emotionally, they're taken care of, they don't feel poor, or just without or
I agree.
lacking. So that's really actually beautiful that you felt like that. So then, went to high school, and then you went to UW-Madison, you said?
I went to UW-Madison, and I graduated with an undergrad in social work, and then I went right on to get my master's in clinical psychiatric social work. At the time, I did my field placement at the VA, and my dad was in the military. He was in the Navy, and he played basketball for the Navy, and had done he did a tour in Vietnam, and had, it wasn't until actually he passed away that I knew a lot of the accolades that he had, because working, I have 15 years in now at the VA, and it just, people's identities are very different. They either like live and breathe to this day with their hats and their jackets, or it was just a chapter in their life that they're proud of. But it's, for my dad, that was more him. He was proud of his experience, but he never really talked about it, shared much about it. So so I did my field placement at the VA, and then actually when I was in undergrad, my field placement supervisor that I was really became close to got sick and later passed away, like in this short time. So I was hired actually before I graduated to take his place, and so that was an honor, but also quite overwhelming at the time.
So you went into a supervisory role?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And and then so that kind of fast tracked. So I went right away. I had thought about taking some time off in between undergrad. I just had started dating my now husband, and it was just this whirlwind, but it was an opportunity I felt like I didn't want to let go, right?
Yeah.
So so then I went right away. I had 1 year left to finish my master's, and we did that. And
so you did that while you were working?
While I was working. While I was working. And Joe finished his MBA a year before I did, so he got a job in Minneapolis. And
Okay, yes.
so he moved before I did. So we were kind of apart. And then I put in a transfer and was transferred to the VA up there.
Okay.
And that was an incredible experience. I loved my job. When we were up there, that was also when we got married. We were married in Green Bay. My family's from Madison, but we were living in
That's so easy to
Minneapolis.
organize.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It was, I mean, I don't even know, honestly, maybe because I was so naive about, it seemed simple at the time. I mean, now I would stress more about it, but I was like, oh, we can do this, it's fine, and had over 400 people at our wedding.
And no online.
Nothing.
No, it was, you just organized that. See, that is a feat, because you didn't even live there. And,
No.
Yeah.
No, and it was, I mean, from what I remember, it was fabulous. But yeah. So then we were living in Minneapolis, and I had this dream job, and we were just newly married, and I became sicker than a dog and realized that I was pregnant right away, and it wasn't in the plan.
Sure.
And so it just really became, I really became conflicted about what was going to happen. Being a new mom and being so far from my family and any sort of help. So Joe ended up getting a job, or was offered a position in the Milwaukee area. So we moved. We moved from Minneapolis to Brookfield, and I didn't travel a lot. I traveled a lot for work, but within the state, I was the HIV coordinator, American Indian coordinator, and did a lot of, and I was on a research team studying the efficacy of antipsychotics and exercise. So,
oh my gosh, interesting.
So I was,
That's very
So at the time, I
yeah.
also got my personal training certification while I was pregnant, which was interesting too. But,
modify a little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we moved to Brookfield, and I thought I'd have some time, but like no one, believing that my due date was actually, I wasn't going to be mom until June 27th.
Okay, yes. So
right, because that was the due date. And so I was like, oh, I have a whole month. Well, we moved in, and Sam came 14 days early. So this Friday, actually, he'll be 26. So so I had this new baby, beautiful baby, in a city I knew no one.
Oh, great.
And I've always worked. I mean, I worked at Chinese restaurant when I was, the minute I could work, I've always had a job. So that was just so unsettling for me.
Sure.
So, and I had just quit a job that was my dream job, and that I loved everything about it. So
so there's a lot going on.
That was a lot. And that was a really tough time. That was a really tough time in my life. But again, with such tremendous guilt, because I wanted this. I've always wanted kids, and he's perfect and beautiful, and I got this great husband, and we're now closer to, I wanted to be closer to his my husband, my in-laws. I was very close. I continue to be very close to my in-laws, and Joe's family's great, very supportive. So like, I just felt like, what on earth would I, like, how can I be so miserable
Yeah.
when my life's quote unquote perfect?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom was the one that really kind of helped me. She'd come down and help me with the baby, and like I must have walked miles, right? Because that's all I
Yeah.
thought I could do. I was even scared to drive in the car with this baby. So we just walked and walked and walked and helped me really identify, like, what was it about my career? What were the aspects about my career that were so fulfilling, and what, like, were there other avenues that maybe align with kind of my life then and motherhood and
like if you could just pick out like some core elements,
yes, like
and
what
maybe match
pros
it.
and cons,
Yes,
you know, like
yeah.
what was it about your job? Well, I've always helped people. My mom's always helped people. If there is a need in the community, if there's a need, I'm always the room mom. If my kids were on a team, I was the one that was coordinating every hotel stay across the country the travel team ever stayed in. I mean, it's like I just always do these things. Like, that's who I am. But on the con list was, well,
now you're just
I
doing
would
that
either
for one
be
soul. Yeah.
right.
Just like, what else do you need?
Exactly. And when I thought about going back into the role of social work, and at least what I was doing, what I couldn't make sit right was that if I was either going to be a wonderful clinician and have nothing left to give my kids, or vice versa. And I think I left out, there was a position in Milwaukee that I could have stepped into, very similar to my position. That's kind of what I was wrestling with. And but it was with very high needs population that I would not do them justice by giving them half. And so I turned down that position, and then I really kind of zoned in on those things about what I felt my skill set was, what I was maybe good at, or what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And it was helping people. So like I said, I had gotten this personal training certification. And actually, when I was in college, I taught classes. That I always worked out my whole life. So like, I had taught classes at the Surf, and that was kind of how I made money to go out on Friday and Saturday nights. And so I joined the Waukesha Y, and within 6 months I was personal training with my kid in tow, teaching classes, and started a career in fitness that I retired not too long ago. So over 25 years I was somehow related in fitness, and it was something that allowed me to use those aspects of what I felt gave me joy and passion, but yet I could also bring my kids along.
Yeah, it was more flexible and
more flexible.
And really, with fitness too, we talked a little bit about this before the show. It's like you're there for the person and you're helping them, but it's a different situation than like social work, because in social work you're there emotionally
I'm the
and every
lifeline.
minute. Yeah,
personal training isn't really a lifeline. It's like
it's a way to improve your existence.
Exactly.
But
exactly. So it was something, but also, I guess, but the flip side to that is the people I was personal training, if my kid had an ear infection and I canceled an appointment, they're not homeless and
correct.
Whereas, you know what I mean? So there was, it was a different.
Yeah, just lower risk.
Lower risk. That's a good way of putting it. Lower risk.
Still impactful, just lower risk.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a good choice, and a way to still do the things that you're sort of called to do, but in a different packaging. So that was good. So then Sam is your oldest, you said. And so how old was he when is Elena?
So Elena Sam was 2, just had turned 2 when I had Elena. So they're close in age.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 miscarriages after Elena.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought like, you know, this was it. I did not want to risk. That was just a lot, you know,
It's
as you
hard.
can imagine. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know if, but
Mhm.
it was a lot. And so I think deep down inside, that was kind of one of the reasons why I felt like a fresh start might be good. So and at the time, Joe, my husband Joe, had wanted to really go into business for ourselves,
Oh, sure.
kind of doing some commercial real estate stuff on, and so it just seemed like the right time, fresh start, and like, you know what, we need to rebrand ourselves, and we need to like move closer to home. Our kids are, and I just loved the public schools in Dane County. I was proponent of the public schools, so I wanted my kids to be in schools here, and so Sun Prairie seemed like the right fit. So we moved, built a house in this area in 2004, long time ago.
I know, but it doesn't feel.
It doesn't feel like a long. It doesn't feel like a long time when I say it out loud.
It's weird.
Yeah. So we moved here, and I was building a house and transitioning here, and was also, that was in my running era, which I don't know if I could run 10 feet now, but I was really into running at the time, and I did a marathon, done 1 marathon, and I was really sick after that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I just depleted. It had to be the running.
Yeah, I ran myself into the ground.
I ran myself into the ground, literally. And as it turned out, I found out at the doctor that I was pregnant. That's how I found out I was pregnant.
So you ran a marathon while you were pregnant?
Yes, and I didn't realize it. And so we weren't really sure of the timing of, you know, when this occurred. So we're like, I think it's this date. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like we were winging it with the third one, and he turned out to be great. And, you know, but there is that age gap, right? So there's 7.5, almost 8 years between my oldest and my youngest. The oldest two are close, and then Teddy came along. So in a lot of ways, his experience was so different.
For sure.
I mean, in a million ways it's different, right? We had our circumstances had changed, where we had more freedom, and because we were in business for ourselves, Joe was just around a lot more.
Sure.
Prior to that, I think when he was working in Milwaukee, I think there was, I was raising the 2 kids with the help of our family, but Joe just traveled a lot cross country, so he was just never home. So he was just around a lot more. Our financial situation had changed, where we had, you know, we had more freedom and flexibility that way. And so, and then the kids were so much older that in a lot of ways he was this single kid. So so he really it was just a gift from God, really, because he just kind of completed our family.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
You know, and you're different parents for every kid.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I mean, good and bad. Like, I don't think Sam ever cried. If I thought he was going to cry, I'd pick him up, right?
For sure, first child.
Right? Yeah. And then the middle one is so close, and she just kind of, she's my one that I can pull the rug out from under her. She'd do a backflip and be like, I'm fine. You know, like, she's just very, she's a middle kid.
Yeah. There's some resilience
there. An only girl, so she's just very resilient. Teddy just, we thought we were done. I didn't have a crib. I didn't have anything. I'm borrowing all this stuff.
Right.
Plus, I had 4 months to plan, right? So,
this is a pattern.
Yeah. So I'm like trying to find a crib, trying to get this. So we had very little stuff, and I'm like, okay, clearly at my age, I'm not like, this is it. So we're like, do we buy this stuff? So our neighborhood and friends, we had this mismatch, all this stuff, and it actually I actually realized then how little I ended up needing.
Yeah.
Because it just...
And by baby 3, it's like, you need the kind of the basics.
Yeah.
And you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing with kids. And so that is, that's different. You have a few clothes, a bottle.
But, that was quite a curveball because just in terms of when I think about, when I was getting ready to talk to her, I'm like, how do I even describe what I do or my job? And I remember thinking when Elena was going to kindergarten, I had put together a resume and thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to work.
Yeah.
Well, and trying to figure that out, and then I have this baby. So I was like, okay, and I'm calling the people back that I had interviewed, and I was hounding them like, please hire me. I'm like, wait, I can't do this because I found this out, which was embarrassing enough to say that I didn't realize I was pregnant.
Right, well, yeah.
But so it kind of like created another like, okay, now what do we do? And just, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like this is just, for me, I've worn so many hats that it's hard to really articulate. Maybe for all of us, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So when Teddy came on board, and when the kids were in school, and kind of how can I fill up some time? And that's when my oldest son Sam and his good friend Seamus O'Shea, some of the other kids that he went to school with, wanted to do a project for the community, really. And honestly, it was a class project. I remember Sam had to, I don't know if it was, can one person make a difference, or what could we do to make a difference in this world? And so I actually had Sam I took Sam to the VA, had him meet with some of the people that I worked with so that he could talk to firsthand, and like, what did they do in their jobs, and like, and one of the things he said to me after, when I picked him up, was, Mom, what is red tape? And I said, well, a lot of us have great ambitions in life to do these things, but there's barriers that prevent us from doing that, right? So like when I case managed, sometimes my biggest responsibility was finding shoes for the guy in front of me when I really needed to get him into drug treatment or housing, but like, he didn't have a winter coat, and that took up the 45 minutes that we had. That kind of creates a barrier for people doing more and greater things, as they're encumbered by these other things. So they took that literally and ran with it. And so we started Card's Closet, which was through the Sunshine Place here in town. And it kind of evolved to this store, Kids Helping Kids. So when Teddy was little, that really was where I spent a lot of the time with Kathleen O'Shea, Seamus's mom. Her and I did that for over 12 years. Just recently retired from that. And and honestly, Mary, of so many of the things that I've been involved with, that's one thing that gives me tremendous pride, is knowing all of the all the people that we helped anonymously, which
Mhm.
again, I think having kids, one of the things that I really, really wanted to make sure was we walk a fine line of wanting to give our kids a better life than we have, and
Yes.
and giving them every opportunity in the world to flourish and succeed, but yet not be entitled, ungrateful jerks, right?
Mhm.
Like which sometimes is easier said than done,
Right.
because
Mhm.
every kid on their baseball team has a $400, well, now it's probably $700 bat,
It's
and like
too much.
and
Yes.
just sometimes saying no out of principle,
Mhm.
and when everyone around them has these things, right?
Mhm.
Like that's hard. So I think having Cards Closet and be involved in that, it wasn't just me, mom, who doesn't know anything, or
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm talking about, that they're involved in seeing this firsthand, that I think it really enabled my kids to identify how perhaps blessed they were, not just by material things, but
Mhm.
just that, uh, just by the kind of the things that money can't buy, like what they had in their life, right?
Of course.
So
Yeah.
we when Teddy was a senior, and that was kind of when, for many years, when the older kids were done with high school, Kathleen and I are like, what's our exit plan? And we just
Mhm.
couldn't figure out a way to get out of this. And so when Teddy was a senior, I'm like, I am not doing this in my true retirement. I mean, I
Right.
love this, but
Mhm.
also, I mean, in the 12 years we were doing this, Sun Prairie and the needs grew dramatically.
Mhm. And just for people who don't know what Cards Closet is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I know what it is,
Yeah.
and I have a little caveat on that.
Yes.
But we should describe what that is.
So it's, well, the acronym is Community Awareness, Resource Development, and Service.
Mhm.
So when the kids sat down and said, they're like, we want to do something. I'm like, okay, well, in some of the nonprofits that I'd encountered in my job, and seeing a lot of people with great intentions like struggle with how to do this, like I just kind of believe sometimes if you keep your scope small
Yes.
and have smaller victories, everyone's happy,
Mhm.
versus biting. I mean, these at the time were 10-year-old kids, right?
Right.
So like housing is out. You can't,
Right.
if I had a magic button for affordable housing, it
Mhm.
would be happening.
Yes.
That's tough. Food, we have a great, I'm like, been there, done that. Our food pantry here
Mhm.
in our community is amazing.
Yes.
They do an amazing job. There's Anne and all the awesome people at the Sunshine Suppers. Like that's taken care of.
Mhm.
But why don't we talk about clothing and that because even as kids,
Yes.
and especially the older kids know that's something they can, that makes them who they are,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
so that's something that's, the tangible is there, but also there's a lot of lessons that we derive from that, and that was kind of, so that's we were like, let's do this, right? So I sat down with Beth Mulcarrick, a friend of mine who started Sunshine Place
Mhm.
many years ago, and said, I want to do this. And she was like, okay, well, let me think about this. Well, within a year, we were in one of their storefronts,
Yes.
and it had gone from, renting a storage unit out by the old Chicken Lips out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
we moved it to the storefront, and we had several storefronts. And it was an opportunity, I think. Kathleen was amazing, and her and her husband Bart were just amazing. They did a lot of the day-to-day, and I think my role through that was more community outreach and just working with some of the older kids that had come in, and an opportunity to talk about, you know, that there's while all of this is free to you, someone worked really hard to get this jacket. And let's talk about that. Like we may not have the color that you want, but if you go to school and you get a job, that's when you have the power to, then you can decide what color jacket you can buy. But at this point, this is you get what you get type thing.
This is what's available.
This is what's available. And it was life-changing for me, definitely. And I know it was life-changing for my kids. In fact, all three of them wrote about it in their college essays.
Nice.
So it was Cards Closet, free clothing, and then we had like personal care items. And we really worked well with food pantry and had a great relationship. And we turned it over to a great team. And by all accounts, it's still flourishing and doing really
amazing,
really well. And I think because the kids saw just how, I think they know how strong stewardship is just such a value for my husband and I. And it's, I shared with you, I think before, that as Ho-Chunk, my maiden name is Black Deer. And so I'm part of the deer clan, and part of that responsibility is being a community steward. And so it's not just an obligation, it's something that is just in my nature, and something that I feel quite honored to be able to do. So in 2020, the kids and Joe and I were sitting outside and on the patio grilling out with some friends of ours, and one of our friends was living in Illinois, and he worked for Northwestern and was in fundraising, and he was like, have you ever, I was like, you know what, I kind of want to formalize things so that this doesn't get lost when I'm dead and gone. Like my kids, we set up an avenue that the kids just can and have a way. We have the means financially that there's something in place that we can really make sure that we have a stakehold in helping our community, whatever that community looks like.
Because that really becomes their.
It becomes theirs. It becomes theirs. It's that's when you. For me, that was creating legacy for me. Like what would I want? What would I want my legacy to be?
Yes.
Right? So, Andrew is his name. He helped. He really took the ball, ran with it. He ended up leaving his job, his corporate or career job, and helped. And for the past 5 years, he actually just took a new job and went back because the so we started a foundation, and it's really his main focus was to help us get it up and running, and it's really at that point, and now we're just kind of figuring out. Now I'm waiting for the kids to I'm pausing it for a little bit and we've got it set up, it's well established, and just kind of, I want the kids, when they're ready, to take it over to the next phase and what they want to do. But in 5 years, we gave over $320,000 out to 127, I think, different local agencies. So it was really cool. It's really cool to see. And so that's kind of what I kind of do now. Is still work on that, but again, kind of pausing that and just kind of just trying to take some time and really enjoy my life with adult kids. It's really cool. I love it. I didn't
made it.
I didn't think I was nervous because, like, to be honest, I mean, full disclosure, I like to be needed.
Yes.
By my kids, by my husband, by my friends. So I was like, boy, what, like, I'm really going to I'm going to be horrible at this.
Yeah.
Well, you know, being able to see them as adults and just the cool stuff they're doing, and honestly, even the struggles they have, and being able to, you know, help them through some of those things it's neat in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you made it to this stage, and that's something to celebrate. But like parenting, you know, it just never ends, and there's all kinds of stuff they're going to go through that, you know, they're going to need you for. But it is that sort of 24/7, you know, just managing the minutia and sort of organizing. And we do feel needed there, and it is important that we're there. So when that is gone, and we talked a little bit about this before the show, it's like, what's next? Because all of that time and energy you spent just making sure and providing and supporting and loving and all of that. First of all, it demonstrates what we're capable of, which we
for sure.
underestimate about ourselves constantly.
For sure.
And you move out of this sort of reactive state to some degree. Even if you figure out how to live intentionally as a mom, it's still like a lot of reacting and adapting. So now you've, you know, stretched the balloon. So what else is going to take up that space now? Because now you know what you're capable of. You've run at that pace, and now you have to redirect. You know, you need a new mission, and your kids will still need you, but like your ability and capability is so great. And I think a lot of times, you know, we get to this point and then just don't know. It's like a stopgap. You
Absolutely.
just don't know. So the upside is you have all this space and time, and you are capable and able. So check, you know, step one, like realize that and understand that. So it's just interesting to talk to you about that. So I'm on the beginning stages of that, you know, but even just with, you know, Molly went to school last year, you know, that's like, it's like a blow, you know, it's like, you want it.
Yes.
You can celebrate it. Of course, you're happy that your child can be self-sufficient and have a job and learn. That really was the goal, wasn't it?
Yes, if we do our job right, they leave.
Is that yes?
Right?
And
the
so
things we cherish the most leave us.
Kind of want to fail at that so that they never leave, you know? And so, like Connor, I just dropped him off at school today, and he's the youngest, and it's his last day of 5th grade, you know? So it's like, I was a little bit, you know, emotional, like, oh my gosh, like we're done with elementary school. No,
absolutely.
You know, and also yay. And so this is really the plight of the mother is all that work you put in just for everybody to go. But fortunately for us, you know, we're capable, and, you know, now you can turn inward a little bit and then continue to give. I mean, thank you on behalf of the community for the things that you've done. And I know you weren't here to solicit that, but like, you know, just, it's amazing to be able to do that. To be in a position to do that and then really execute on that. And just about Card's Closet, not to dominate the conversation for a second, but Molly, when she was in 5th grade, maybe she'll kill me for telling this story, but we were eating dinner and she had like, I think we're having hot dogs. I don't brag about my cooking, but anyways, she had part of the bun left and some ketchup was on it. She's like, I don't want to eat like just a ketchup on it. And who knows, but for some reason it sent me off on this like just monologue about you're fortunate enough to have it. Yep. There are kids that don't. What do you think that would feel like to be sitting there and wanting that bun and the person that had it just disregard? So anyway, that turned into, because Molly's an emotional person who, you know, she just loves to make sure things are on the side of right. She doesn't want people to feel bad. And so that ended up being, how could she help the people that didn't have, you know, a hot dog bun with ketchup? And so we were talking about different ways. And so she organized a gene drive through her elementary school in 5th grade to...
I actually remember this.
Yes.
I remember
so that was Molly.
Honestly, I think Mary, I think that's honestly the first time you and I had a conversation. I think you
Maybe.
had reached out to me
Yeah.
to say, like,
Is
what are
this
the
something?
parameters,
Yeah.
or is this okay, or what do you need? And I think we had kind of come up
Yes.
with that.
So here
Yeah,
we are
no.
a million years later.
Yeah, it
But
does.
if you didn't start that, this is the whole thing, is like, you never know what's going on, and you can contribute in small ways in your space. You know, you don't have to take on the whole world.
No, and
know?
again, I mean, I kind of feel like at times, like when I talk to, now I'm at the age where my friends' kids are having kids.
Yes.
And I've talked to some new moms, and it's kind of in that same light when I was talking to the kids about, like starting this nonprofit is, you know what, it's okay to keep your scope really small.
Mm-hmm.
Take the wins as small as they are,
Mm-hmm.
find a win every day.
Yes.
Even if that's being able to shower,
Mm-hmm.
like motherhood is rough.
It is rough.
And so like it's I guess I would never want to sit here and think, like you can accomplish, like there were more days than not that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
For sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
like and I think it was like for me, so my kids being at Card's Closet, my kids, even though they must see evidence at school of kids maybe that were lacking what they might have had, or
Mm-hmm.
in different degrees, however that took shape. But to see it firsthand, for me, it was a visual reminder. I still have a Post-it note after all these years. It's now laminated. It's on my desk at my office. Said, remember where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how, whatever life has, blessings I've been afforded with, I just never forget where I came from. And for me, it's knowing that, my dad grew up on dirt floors, no
Mm-hmm.
running water, right? And so like he made tremendous sacrifices
Mm-hmm.
so that I have the life I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, that's so important. And so have that visual reminder every day that quite literally any of the decisions and chances I rolled the dice on
Mm-hmm.
could have worked out way differently, and I could have been with my 3 kids
Mm-hmm.
needing clothes at Card's Closet.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So like for me that was really important,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just
Well, it's humility.
it's humility, and
Mm-hmm.
I never want to forget that. And now I don't know, I think we didn't really even have cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have social media that's telling our kids and moms that they're failures at, like, I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything. The only people I hung out with were other moms, and we were
Yes.
both like, I don't really know how to do this. Do you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how this
Let's try it.
baby Bjorn works.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone show me how to do
Yeah.
this? Like, we weren't afraid maybe to be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't plastered everywhere.
Right.
Now I think it's just there's so much
Mm-hmm.
that says you can't or you shouldn't.
Well, and even indirectly, because you have access to every piece of information now. So if you don't know it, why didn't you know it? Because
Right.
you could have. And that's very unfair. It's great when you're me and you want to look everything
Totally.
up, and you're so thrilled that, like, I never ask a question because
Correct.
I can get the answer. And as someone who didn't used to have access to that, that is thrilling to me.
Absolutely.
But if you come here and you can get the answer to everything, but then you don't know it, that feels bad. And so as a mom, if you're a new mom, you can watch new moms literally the whole day and what they're doing. And then, like, how come you still don't know? And you
Right.
see that on social media. People ask a question, and sometimes it starts out, please don't beat me up, or please don't be negative. Like, this is what my child is
Absolutely.
doing. Then everybody is negative.
and how
they
quickly
do
we
beat you up.
forget. Like, just how easy it is now. For me, would it be to say, well, you know, how, like, why are you feeding your kid that? When I'm thinking, if you know Sam, I mean, my oldest, I mean, there were a good year, maybe several years, where the kid only had chicken nuggets, and I think he drank from a bottle of ketchup. So, like, it's easy, you know, like, but sometimes we forget, because we've been there, done that. You forget how hard it can be. Or and you don't give grace to, like, in that moment, if that kid only wants to eat pepperoni, let him eat the, I mean, like, you know, he's just eating. Honestly, at some point, I remember thinking, it's just one more minute to bedtime. I'm just working towards bedtime.
Yeah. Well, and when your kids are little, like, it really is just trying to have some idea of a routine and stay within it, because you both don't know. I mean, your kid just got here, and you've never been this person before. Now you're called to be someone you've never been, and you can only learn that by experiencing it. You can gather knowledge, but all of that knowledge has to be expressed through who you are as an individual, and you can only know that as you're experiencing it. So there needs to be a lot of grace. And
well, and I think, to your point, you know, kind of where do I go now? You know, like, in that same breath, like, I mean, that's why I think shows like this are so important for people to watch and be like, because it's isolating at times, right? Like, how do I navigate this? And after my father passed, our pastor gave my mom some, I think, very sage advice, and he said, you know, just don't make any big moves for 18 months. Just sit on it. Just let your grief, just give it some time. And so for me, when Teddy graduated, I'm like, you know what? Because my first inclination is always like, I got to fill the space, right? I'm not good with silence. So, like, if you're around me, it's like, okay, Denise, stop talking. Like, I'll just fill up the space with whatever I can. Is to not make any sudden. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And in the process of trying to get where we can retire, we've also kind of switched gears and kind of shrunk our company, got rid of some things, and kind of just in March started a new company and kind of making it smaller and more manageable, so that Joe at some point can retire, so that we can actually
enjoy what
we worked for. And so I'm just kind of seeing where it goes. I'm involved with that, but also my daughter lives in Ireland, and Sam, our oldest, lives in Boston. So, and I love to travel. I think that's what I love to do. Other than being with my family, I want to travel. So right now I just need to find ways to fund that.
Yes. Well, that's the key part of it.
But so just finding avenues that I can fill up those spaces, but also the flexibility to kind of have some fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've had a life of service, really.
Yeah.
Should be proud of that, and you're humble, so you don't have to be outwardly proud of that. But you know, I think you've, if I can offer an opinion, like, done your dad a great honor by, you know, knowing dirt floors and then not discarding that, you know, just understanding that and working hard to honor that by who you've become and all the ways that you've impacted people in the community and just, you know, in your life and raising your family. And, you know, I'm sure that your kids feel that richness too, and we're not talking money, you know, just that. And for the people watching, you know, there is I didn't grow up, with a ton of money. I grew up in the military, and everything is like military. So like it's one store on the base, and all the people your friends all have that same shirt. It's just in different colors. So like options are limited here. And so that really wasn't a focus. But yeah, I mean, my parents were conservative with their money, and I never thought we were like rolling in money, but I also didn't feel like scarcity, I guess, either.
Correct.
And so, you learn hard work, and then you can honor those who sacrifice, so you have the opportunity to do that. And it really is like you've done that. And so I think from what you've talked about and who your kids are, they've learned that by watching you and being part of that. And that's really an amazing thing. So,
well, thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great. So now off to new adventures as
I mean,
an empty
I
nest.
Yeah, I think there's been a few personal things that has made me realize how life is so short.
Yes.
So I don't want to wait, because I don't know. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us, right? So I really just kind of want to make every day,
Well, and the patterns in your life, if you watch this, I mean, it's like something's happening a little sooner than what? If you follow the patterns.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Maybe
That
you
is
can
true.
sit here for a minute, but like something's coming to find you to do,
I think so.
if we follow like how that is unfolded for you. So just eyes open, I'm sure there's so many ways that you can continue to contribute. So yay.
Yeah.
This was so lovely. Okay, so should people get a hold of you? I know we have either your website or your...
I gave my email.
Okay.
We're still, like I said, we just, Black Deer Investment Group, we just broke ground in March, so are kind of working through our website. So that would be the best way. If people watching have interest in kind of with the foundation, or just any sort of commercial real estate aspect, be happy to, or just anything I've talked about, be happy to. I gave Erica my email address.
Okay, good. So that should be showing on the screen. So if you're interested in getting a hold of Denise, you have her email address now. And maybe one of you has the thing that's coming for her to do next. But otherwise, anything else you want to share, just with, you talked about new moms and just your own motherhood journey, any other things you want to share with moms at all?
No, I think just to really trust your gut and know that it's never linear,
At all.
So if the best made plans, in my experience, generally don't work out, but in the end, whenever I've thought it's been a catastrophe, I've either met a new friend or gotten a new job offer, or something happened.
Yeah.
So to find the good, there's always good in any situation. Look for it.
Yes, there's always good. And sometimes it's like, if you feel like something is really derailing you, pay attention.
Right.
Because you don't know what's on the other side of that. Maybe it wasn't, that path wasn't meant to be forever,
Yes.
So pay attention. So yeah, good. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much.
I really
for
enjoyed
coming.
this. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy we could finally sit down and chat. This is so good. And I think, people watching will take so much from your story, and just resilience and strength and drive and a sense of stewardship. And it's really lovely. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so keep your perspective, but don't be afraid to step into the perspective of somebody else to learn something like we did here with Denise today. Be resilient, continue to show up even when it's hard. Your kids need it, you need it, and the world needs it. Continue to pursue your goals, stay after it. Again, even when it's uphill, there comes a peak and there is some relief. And don't ever feel alone. There's a group of 2 billion of us worldwide, and you're part of that, and we're here for you. Thank you.